Roberto, we just had the family conference for MCC. What are for you the most important takeaways?
The most important takeaway was that we have effectively a struggle or a war on our hands to find a way to rediscover what the family actually means, and it's sort of a genealogy of the family and what it has stood for, and then we have to find a way to strengthen and reinvigorate it according to those models, because it is really under threat by various forces.
How difficult is this task? Because it seems to me that what we are living through now is really a consequence of modernity, where the focus shifted from the community to the individual. It has taken a couple of hundred years, but since the 60s, there is so much more choice. A lot of things change between the genders. That seems to be the biggest single factor, is the postponement of starting a family, whereby then women end up in a situation where all of a sudden they can't have children anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly all true. I do think that there is a fundamental sort of modern element involved here. I talked about it in the panel as well, that it's really modernity that is the most inimical, let's say, to family and traditional family at that.
But if we accept that, how can we change it?
Yeah.
What can move the needle?
Yes. So I think the first thing is to recognize that when we think about our sort of individuality and our individual desires, and we think of the individual as something very rewarding, and there's a normative contradiction between having the individual and his kind of like desires and what kind of what gives you flourishing and what gives you fulfillment, and the natural biological drives that sort of precede the social desires of the individual. So in some ways we have a contrasting or contradictory value system in which we both want to be a productive member of society, productive member of our community, which we think is based on us being productive individually.
Yes.
And then that clashes with our understanding of what we need to do, which is sort of organically driven, which is sort of we do have an urge, and this is actually very much the case for women, where they a lot of times have this sense of regret as well, because they feel like they have to choose. Whereas yes, it is a real choice, and it's a tragic choice because there's a contradiction there. There is so in a sense, your motherhood or your fatherhood, your desire to want to have family and children keeps getting compared for its monetary cost or monetary benefit, for its sort of for the way and amount of cost or pressure that it might put on your own sort of ambitions, personal ambitions, and so I think that to resolve that is not something that an individual can resolve. We live in this context, in this paradigm of this clash of values, and so I think we need to find. We found maybe communities where we start from putting the values of the community, putting the values that are organic and natural, the sort of the will to procreation, put that as the first starting value, and then go from there. Yes, you can still be an individual. Yes, you can still do certain things, but we need to, I think, revalue our value system.
But these values, aren't they connected to religiosity? Because isn't that the context where these kind of values are passed? We used to think of God as outside ourselves, but now God is within ourselves, and that's when the whole thing changed.
Yeah, I don't think it. Obviously, I think data shows that people who are more religious have a much better, basically resolve this tension in one way. They choose the procreation. Yes, that's true. But I don't think that's necessarily only the sort of prerogative of religious people. Yeah. Because if you only have awareness and consciousness of the dynamics that are involved, and of sort of kind of the social nature, the creative and constructive nature of the personal ambitions, let's say. If you are aware of that, even if you're not religious, you can choose maybe to make the kind of family. And if you're able to bring families together and live in close proximity in certain areas, and then we put that and celebrate that and have programs that support that through communities and through families themselves, maybe then we can move towards the paradigm shift that's needed. So a lot of times we take what we do for granted, and other societies that do have more of a traditional family also take what they do for granted. They don't think about why they choose the marriage option that was presented to them by their family. They just do it, right? So, and we also think that we follow our career path. We just do it.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to find a balance between those two separate incentives.
How do we get the companies on board? Because I'm reminded of a quote by Tucker Carlson. Big corporations hate your family because they consider family as a speed bump on the road to higher productivity. How do we get companies on board and change the atmosphere there?
Yeah. So that's a very tough question. I think the very logic of capitalism and of big corporations, as I mentioned as well, and I think you're absolutely right, is sort of against the family. It is so because it needs workers and it needs people that it can in some ways exploit. And what the family does is it prevents that. It allows for you to not to define yourself based on the job or the career that you have. You're defined based on the family name, based on the traditions of the family, based on the values, based on all sorts of things that are not determined or valued, let's say, prioritized by the neoliberal order. So I think there's a fundamental tension that until we have, and that's I guess the million-dollar question, until we have a post-capitalist order of thinking about how it is, does capital come first or do families and cultures come first?
But is that a post-capitalist or a post-neoliberal order? Is it the same?
I think it's, at this point, neoliberalism is the latest iteration of capitalism. So and I think it's its last leg. I do think that we are moving away. Again, this false dichotomy between socialism and capitalism, in many ways, socialism and Marx and Engels were also big challengers to the family, right? Because when I'm talking about the sort of the post-capitalist order, I hope that it's not confused that we're talking about socialistic orders. No, we do think that moving beyond the capitalist order, the neoliberal order, will have a different economic system which has a different principle of value, which means that the economy is there to serve other things within a culture and community, not the community and the culture and the people serving the economy.
So it's actually about rediscovering the tradition.
Yes.